Hey, everybody, it's Ken McElroy. I'm here with Bobby Bowl. Hey, Bobby.
Hey, Ken.
So everybody wants to know, what's the secret sauce at MC Companies? How are we finding deals? Well, you've now met Bobby Bowl. Bobby works for us in acquisition. So his job is to fly all over the place, underwrite deals, present them to Ross and I, and figure out whether or not they're going to produce returns. So welcome to the show. Hey, okay. So Bobby, let's talk a little bit about, generally, what does an acquisition person do? So for those of you who haven't known, I've known Bobby for, how long? 20 years? At least 20 years. So it's not something that we just hired haphazardly when we put an ad out. This is a relationship that we've had for a long, long time. And Bobby has been in the business a long, long time. So maybe we should start, Bobby, with, just kind of your background, how you kind of came into this crazy business. And then we can talk about what an acquisition person does.
Yeah, sure. So my background, my dad was an investment banker and was in real estate, worked for a private real estate firm, the largest private real estate firm out of New Mexico. They owned over 200 properties in 35 states. So I learned about real estate early on.
So you came up in the business.
So I came up in the business, and then I was able to get a job with CB Richard Ellis, CBRE, out of college. And thankfully and luckily, I was able to get into their shop and learn the business there.
So if you guys don't know, this is like they're the top broker in the world. They have the best training programs. And so for those of you who are young, this is a great program. If you can get a job with CBRE, even today, it's worth it.
Yes, exactly. Or any other large brokerage house, investment firm to show you the ropes. And so I was fortunate enough to get in there and then learn the business, made a ton of contacts, and was in brokerage, basically real estate brokerage, for over 20 years.
Commercial brokerage.
Commercial.
Yeah. And then you kind of focus on multifamily, right?
And focused primarily on multifamily apartments. And that's how I met you.
Yeah.
I was
on his list. I was one of the contacts. So this is
although you never sell.
I know, but you're always calling me for those of you, this is a hard business, right? It's not easy. And if you're afraid of dialing, it's probably not for you, because if you think that deals are going to come to you, you're not going to make any money in it, right? It's a hard business.
Yes, it is. It's extremely difficult.
It's a relationship business. It's lots of lunches, breakfasts, dinners, beers, glasses of wines, sporting events, whatever, golf. Right?
It's about timing.
Yeah,
too.
It's about all that stuff. And then if they say, I might sell, they might call you. Even then, they might call you because, as you know, we have multiple people calling us all the time.
Or there's a brother of a brother or uncle or aunt that helps people too.
It's a difficult business. A lot of people look at the commissions, because they're big commissions. A transaction that we do, it might be $100,000 to $300,000 for one commission.
Right.
And so there can be far and few between. And if you're lucky enough to have multiple ones going at the same time, you can do really, really well. But there's years and years and years of training, research, and relationship building all behind it all, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And analysis.
Yeah. Most importantly. Right. Yeah. And if you're not providing value to somebody that you're picking up the phone for, they're not going to call you back. Right. And so luckily, Bobby decided to make that move. He decided to go from being a broker, from cold calling all of these folks, to being our acquisition guy. Right. Yeah. And so we were really happy about that, because all he's done, you moved from Texas.
Right. From Houston.
Yeah. From Houston, Texas, back to Arizona, was from Arizona, but has incredible experience. I don't even know how to wrap this up, but you've probably got hundreds of thousands of units that you've looked at and toured and bought and sold, right?
Right.
Easily. Right.
Not as many as you.
So anyway, we're happy to have him here. But Bobby is one of the primary reasons why we keep our momentum going. Right now, he's looking for land, looking for value add deals, looking for apartment deals, looking for real estate deals that make sense. And so, Bob, let's talk about like for people that might not know, like what would a typical acquisition person do?
So my primary role is looking at the bones of the real estate, the location, what's the story, and what's the play? Can we add value? I'm also wanting to know the transportation corridors, the new road alignments. Right. For example, the Southeast Valley and in Phoenix, there's so much growth happening, all the way down to Queen Creek, or understanding where the jobs are, the employment centers. It's staying abreast, staying on top of every market.
Right. So
and knowing the trades, knowing the
so as deals come up, let's say there's let's just talk about the deal you just flew down and looked at. We just looked at a deal in Dallas, Texas. It was a same owner. This is why I got excited. Same owner for 16 years. 18 years. 200 to 300 units in Dallas, which we like. And they hadn't done a lot of work on the inside and the outside. So same owner, same management company, same this, rents below market, like the perfect property. So it might take months to find something like that. We might find one a month. We might find 10. It just depends as Bobby's looking. So what are some of the things that we did? Obviously those of all the right things that, in something that we want to look at. But when Bobby went down there, flew down there, met with the broker, met with some of our team, we already have properties in Dallas, we got even more excited, right? So that's what's called good bones, which means it was built in the 80s.
85.
Right, in 85. It was two stories, had a nice clubhouse but dated, and so it had a great possibility. So think about it like if you're looking at a home that had what we call that functional obsolescence, where you walk in and it's kind of funky, cut up floor plans, maybe it's old. In our case, we don't want properties that have like two pipe system, like a boilers where we're supplying the heating and the water for the whole project, or flat roofs or things like that. You start to see these things. And so this had all the right things on the bone side, but on the value add side, that's where we got the most excited, right?
Right.
And by the way, we didn't get this deal, but I'll tell you how the process.
We lost out to someone that just had more units than us, that's based in Dallas.
In Dallas. And there were how many offers?
37.
37 offers on one project. We got down to best and final for how many? What was that again? 5?
So, yes.
There were 5 people on a phone call with the seller. You had to fill out a questionnaire. And then from there, you have to basically put your best foot forward.
Yep.
Right?
And hopefully come out on top.
Yeah. And we took second.
Yeah, we took second.
Right.
Lost in a tiebreaker, they said.
We lost in a tiebreaker. So we actually had the same price, but they went with a guy that had more units in Dallas. This is the typical process. We spent a bunch of money getting to that point. Bobby, obviously, time. And we figured out that we really wanted to buy this deal, but there was a top line number that we didn't want to go over.
Right.
Right. And there's a certain value add. And so when we talk about value add, trying to remember the exact price we offered.
So it was 26 million.
Okay. So we were offered 26 million for the property, but I knew that it was like a $7 to $9 million value add, right? So I was going to take the property, or we were, up into the $34 to $36 million value range. So when I was looking at the property, it was 26 million, and Ross and I were like, okay, because you're going to put easily $7-8 million bucks into the project with the down payment and the capital work and maybe even a little bit more. And so what we're trying to solve for is how do we get that money back? How do we get the investor money back? Right. And so that's a traditional value add. But in this particular case, we didn't get the deal. But this is what a good acquisition person does. They bring deals like that. It gets the management company to get excited. It gets the sponsor excited. It gets our investors excited because you can show on paper, this is how you can take something that's undervalued today, put some money into it and grow the value, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's essentially what a good acquisition person does.
But the other part of it too is looking for these deals that this particular owner was out of Colorado and he had owned the asset for 18 years. And he hadn't done anything to the property.
Right.
So it was right down the fairway, middle of the fairway. That's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And he had a capital gains issue. So he was going to 1031 exchanges funds into something else. We were going to help him with that. And then we've got properties in Dallas. So economies of scale, we know the market. And so that's what we're looking for.
Right. So that's how you really find deals and that's how you create value for your investors. So let's talk about one of the things that you look for is a good location. So let's talk about, why that's so important. Because I've bought in plenty of properties in small submarkets that are reliant, let's say, on one big employer, or maybe it's the military, or maybe it's heavily retail or heavily tourism, or even kind of behind something. So when you look for a property, and one of the things is a really, really good location, why is that so important?
So number one, drive-by exposure, visibility. On major arterial streets, or if it's next to, for example, this property was right next to Super Target. It's just north of I-20. So right in the middle of all the action in this corridor. There's no more available land to be built on. So it's going to be less supply competing with us.
All very important things. These are subtle things, but big.
Yeah. In the middle of schools, there was a school just to the north being repositioned or, refreshed. And University of Texas, San Antonio was up the street as well. So higher learning's there and jobs right in the middle of all the retail shopping, the malls.
Right. So guys, as you're looking for a good location, what he's basically saying is it's in the middle of everything.
Right.
And so when renters are trying to rent, they're making those considerations. Literally, they're saying, how far is it for me to drive to the grocery store? How far is it for this? How far is it for, to go get a coffee somewhere? If it's close to a school or even in a good school district, parents will make decisions around that.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so that's all part of the good location. So what I see a lot of times, the mistakes people make is they go to the edge of town because it's cheaper. Right? This happens all the time. They're like, we can get a better deal out there. Well, yeah, there's a reason. Nobody wants to drive an hour to go to stuff. Right. And so as you get further and further out, these properties become harder and harder and harder to manage, harder to cash flow, and harder to generate value.
And one point on that too is we saw this a couple of years ago when gas prices were really high. A lot of people didn't want to drive that far and spend a lot of money on gas, and the commuting times were up. So now gas prices are lower, right. And now during COVID, people are working from home. So, they're not necessarily renters aren't necessarily having to work at an office anymore. So they're more looking for, a rental property that meets all their needs.
Right.
Everything.
Which is something that you guys should be thinking about at all times. I mean, essentially this is about the renter, right? I mean, I always tell people, I say real estate exists for people.
Yeah. Rent
not
value.
The other way around.
Rent value.
Yeah.
What do I get for my dollar?
What do I get for my money? Is this a good location? Is it clean? Is it safe? Is it good? Is it well managed?
Amenities. Can I use the amenities? Or they shut
save
down?
on my gym membership. Right. Yeah, all that stuff is something that you need to consider. So let's talk about value adds. That number that gets thrown around a lot. People are like, oh yeah, you got any value adds? You got any value adds? It means so much to different people. What are some things that people could be looking at, like low hanging fruit, on to create a value add?
Well, number one is taking out some cabinets and opening up the unit. I like that play. I also like redoing the countertops, the fixtures, the lighting, the flooring, new appliances, and then also the exterior of the building, the landscaping, parking, safety, lighting, and I would just say,
the list goes on.
And service, the management.
Yes.
That's one thing that we provide well is service.
Yep.
So,
right. One of the things that we used to do just to make it super easy and simple for people is we would say, okay, it has washer and dryer connections. So if a unit has a washer and dryer connection, that's expensive. So all you got to do is buy a $550 set, washer, dryer, put it in a unit. And now those people don't have to go down to the laundromat, and you can charge $50 to $75 more. So literally it has less than a 1 year payback. So for a $500 or $600 expense, you get a 1 year payback. So that's how we think of everything. As we start to do work in an apartment community, whatever it might be, putting in garages, putting in carports, putting in pet areas, all those kinds of things always have to relate back to rent. How do I pay for this, right? So the same thing on a value add. Like we've all heard the stories, like I see this all the time where, you're like, oh my God, they spent way too much in this kitchen, right? You've seen that. I've seen that. There's a point where you can spend too little, and there's a point when you can spend too much. And we're not going to be able to get into that here. But the truth is, it can be a massive difference. You could spend $2,000, $3,000 per unit more than you need and not be able to get another set in rent. So there's some basic things that you need to be careful of, but there's some basic things that you have to do in order to get that kind of payback. So when we're looking at a true value add, we're looking at the whole picture. We might have 10 categories, 12 categories, 15 things that we're doing, including putting in security gates, including upgrading the fitness facility, including we put pet facilities, we put pet areas in every single one of our apartments, every single time. It's just a thing we do. And that's part of what we're looking at when we're acquiring too, right? All those things add value. As people come in and they have pets, and they do, that's a big deal for people. So you have to be looking at those kinds of things as you're investing.
Right. And, we can go back to this deal in Dallas that we missed out on, but, the opportunity to add 140 units with washers and dryers, that was a big part of it.
Right.
And then keep the laundry center going for the rest of the residents.
Right.
Was big.
Exactly.
And then also increasing the size of the fitness center, because the fitness center was just basically a room off to the side of the leasing center. So it was just a bunch of gym equipment, put into this room, and that was it.
Right. And those are all marketing opportunities and real opportunities, because people, especially now, if they can give up their gym membership, and many people are right now, and be able to work out somewhere locally and still be able to use the gym equipment as part of their rent, those are things that people really make decisions around, right? So let's talk about the physical property and the condition of the property. Is there anything that jumps out at you that would make you pass on a property? Because I know you've been through thousands of them.
Sure. Well, probably number one is the roofs. I look at the roofs, look at the catwalks, if there's catwalks along the property, cracks in the stucco
foundations,
or in the foundations. But the landscaping, just by looking at the physical appearance, you can tell if a building's been maintained or not. Also look at the interiors of the units, if there's a lot of patch work that's been done on the ceilings. Yes. The other value add too is the popcorn ceilings.
Yeah, popcorn ceilings. The old ceilings. Yeah,
scraping.
You remember those? Oh my gosh.
So, but I look at everything about the building, and then the porches or the balconies, the railings, the stairs.
A lot of structural.
A lot of structural. Yeah. And then the parking lot is a big one. Texas, it's different. It's concrete there. And
guys,
Phoenix,
by the way, this stuff adds up.
Yeah, it adds. It's very expensive.
Like if you have to redo a parking lot, you're talking about a couple $100,000, depending on the size of stuff we're buying. And then the roofs are $200,000-$300,000, right? And then the paint job is $150,000-$200,000, depending on the size. And then it's just click, 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 click. And here's the thing: those things don't make more rent. They just have to be done. So you could spend millions of dollars on the outside and not get it back in rent, because the renter just says, we just want a safe, clean place. And so you have to spend that money. And so that's when kind of the tide starts to turn, when you have all this exterior capital improvement, right?
Yeah. And another one is the monument signage. I look at the signage, and the marketing window. What's the property look like from the street? It's very important. Going back to this deal in Dallas, I wanted to fix some of the, basically that marketing window, because the sign you couldn't really see when you're coming up to it. You didn't know what it was. So
yeah, they fly right by
the name of the property, and these
people fly right by. You bet they do.
And the cars are just traveling.
You have to have them look. Flags, monument signs, bandit signs, good landscaping, great entrances. You guys know, you've driven by places and you go, oh my God, what is that? It's a big resort, or it's a big this, or it's a big that. And you need to have a grand statement.
Yeah, and if you miss it, then you got to do a U-turn.
Go to the next one.
Come back around.
Yeah, right. Go to the competitor.
Yeah. So
right. Yeah, I know there's been a few things that we've passed on. I remember specifically, we had a property that had expansive soil. So it's not quicksand, but it's pretty darn close, where literally the foundations had been poured and they were cracking. And so you can imagine this is major work if you have to get into that. Another one is old galvanized plumbing. Galvanized plumbing on the inside rusts from the inside. You can't see it. And eventually it starts to break, especially when you plug in copper to it and you get what's called electrolysis, and it starts having these pinhole leaks.
And the poly piping.
Poly piping is another one.
Another one that
that's another
away from.
That's another big one. And also some of the old sprinklers, overhead sprinklers, they had some defective, I think they're called Omegas, if I remember right. And so there's all these things: asbestos paint, lead paint, asbestos in flooring. We've had all this stuff, mold, we've had radon, we've had all these things. And these are things that can be very expensive to remediate, and fix.
Another area, the common area, is the swimming pool. The pool area.
That's a big one.
That's expensive.
Oh, I've had cracked pools, pools break. I mean, I've seen
the barbecue grills and pagodas.
Underground piping, underground gas lines, all that kind of stuff. And you guys can start, as you start to tour properties, you start to see it. Like if you're driving a property and you see big patches in the middle of the parking lot all over the place, somebody's digging down and fixing stuff. That's an issue that you might see all over. These are real things that happen all over the place, and it drives me nuts. Like whoever I'm with is they go out of their minds and it's like, do you ever stop looking? Because I'm always looking, right? It doesn't really matter. It could be a retail center, a commercial center, office building, but it's the same stuff that happens at all these places.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Hey, Bobby, thanks, man. I appreciate your insight on this. And so for those of you that are on the premium site, Bobby and I are going to jump over there and we're going to talk about, how to underwrite buildings, how to really look at the numbers, and how to determine whether or not we want to buy or not buy.